start by giving a little bit of background about how I've struggled with insomnia. And then if I give a little bit of information on the link between kind of poor sleep, insomnia, and Hashimoto's and the impact it has. And then I'll give you a proper introduction, and then you can take it from there if that works for you.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay, so my personal story, I've struggled with insomnia, or should that be, I did struggle with insomnia for 20 plus years, and it just got worse and worse until the point prior to diagnosis I was sleeping probably 1 to 2 hours a night. And needless to say, I was waking feeling absolutely exhausted, dragging myself through the day. So when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, I was quite relieved. I assumed that I'd stop taking the medication and that basically everything would improve, including my sleep. Whilst the amount of sleep I got did improve, the quality didn't. So I was sleeping more hours, but I was still waking, feeling like an absolute zombie, dragging myself through the day, counting down the hours until I could either have a nap or get back in bed for the night. And it wasn't just kind of trouble getting to sleep. I had trouble staying asleep, and like I said, not feeling rested at all when I did wake. This all changed for me when I changed my diet and my lifestyle. In fact, it was the first symptom that I noticed had changed. I actually started to sleep properly. I felt more rested when I woke up. I felt like I could cope with things much more. It was probably the biggest thing that made me stick with the changes because they were quite extreme to start with.
Brilliant.
It made me realise that it was actually worth pursuing. It was worth sticking to because it gave me a better quality of life. So I'm sure most of you are aware, if you've got Hashimoto's, that insomnia is quite common. So I'll just explain a little bit more about the impacts of lack of sleep or poor quality sleep and what the kind of basically the end results can be. So it can increase inflammation throughout the body, but specifically within the gut, which can lead to leaky gut, and it can also lead to an imbalanced gut bacteria. It's really important that our gut bacteria is balanced for our health, and especially for our immune health. The health of our gut bacteria basically implicate how healthy our immune response is. So if we have an unhealthy gut, our immune system doesn't work properly. We have abnormal immune responses, which is what leads to autoimmune disease and things like Hashimoto's. When we sleep, our brain detoxes. So if we're not sleeping properly, or not getting enough sleep, not getting the right quality, the deep sleep that we need, then our brain isn't getting rid of those toxins and those waste products from the reactions that happen throughout the day. So this is going to impact our Hashimoto symptoms. You're going to be experiencing brain fog. You're going to experience fatigue. It's going to impact your digestion. Your mood is going to be impacted. So you're likely to struggle with anxiety, depression, irritability. And interestingly enough, our perception of pain is decreased from sleeping. And if we're not getting enough sleep, then we're likely to feel pain much more than we normally should do, which is probably one of the reasons behind the continuous kind of muscle and joint pain that most of us experience. So to summarize, sleep can be one of the driving forces behind your Hashimoto symptoms, and it can certainly make them worse. So on that note, I'm going to give you a little intro to Rosy and then hand over to Rosy so she can give you the expert opinion on kind of what you should be doing and how you can improve this. So Rosy is a registered nurse, and she's also a registered health visitor. She has a BSc honours as a certified sleep practitioner, and she has been helping exhausted mums get their babies to sleep for the past 3.5 years using gentle and intuitive methods, many of which that can be translated over for adults. So on that note, I'll let Rosy take it from there and give give you all her expert advice.
Yeah, hi. I just correct you a little bit there, actually, Helen. My degree isn't in sleep. That was like a follow-on qualification. So I've got a nursing degree and community nursing. So yeah, I don't, as far as I know, there's not a sleep practitioner degree course.
I read it wrong.
Yeah,
That's my answer.
I think there's lots of sort of medical degree. You know, if you're a doctor, there's lots of further MSCs and things you can do, I think, but I haven't done those. But so obviously, as Helen said, my area of specialty is babies and children, but obviously I've sort of been immersed in the subject for the last 3.5 years, so I've picked up so much about adult sleep as well. And prior to that, when I was health visiting, obviously I deal with the families and the parents who are sleep deprived because of what their baby is up to at night time. So it sort of led me to sort of find out a lot about it. And I'm afraid I do give my children and my husband lectures about it all the time. So I think it's quite important to understand the two things that sort of drive our sleep and what makes us go to sleep in a sort of, in simple terms. So, and again, this is for both adults and children. So obviously, as the day wears on, we build up what we call sleep pressure, and it's a chemical called adenosine that builds up, and that's sort of your drive to fall asleep in the evening. And the longer you've been awake, the more of that has built up. And the other thing that's sort of driving into that is your Cacadian rhythm. So obviously that's timing and when you would eat, exposure to light, that kind of thing, they all feed into, so it's external factors as well as your internal body clock that are working together to help you feel sleepy and fall asleep at bedtime. And there are lots of things, I mean, we've probably all heard the term sleep hygiene. So one of them, I would say the key driving factor that affects your circadian rhythm is light. So in terms of sleep hygiene, in the evening, dim your lights. It's really obvious, but people often will do that. You've got little side lights on at night time as you're sort of winding down, but then people go into the bathroom and turn all the lights on to brush their teeth, and you're kind of being bombarded with basically the opposite of what your body needs to feel sleepy. So I always recommend that for the evening, but equally daylight, if you can get out in the morning especially, that has a really significant impact on your on the day, really. So getting outside in the morning, it not only boosts your energy for what you've got in the day, but it also sets your body clock and helps you fall asleep at night time. So it's kind of all interrelated. It's not separate things throughout the day. What you're doing all day feeds into what's going to happen at night time. So obviously, another sleep hygiene thing that we need to think about during the day is caffeine. It's a big factor in a lot of people's lives, especially if you've not slept well at night. Caffeine helps you stay awake, and it actually blocks your adenosine receptors. So it's actually it's really just holding off sleep. It's not it's still, that sleep pressure is still there, and it just, as the caffeine wears off, you have this big sort of crash. So basically, I always recommend that if you don't have caffeine after lunch, really, I don't know what you would say, Helen, for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if you're going to have anything with caffeine in it, which is also present in tea and chocolate and ice cream and that kind of thing, just try to avoid it after lunch, because caffeine has a really long half-life, so you can still have it in your system late into the evening. And even decaffeinated coffee has actually got some caffeine in it, so just be really careful with that. Alcohol, that's another sort of thing we need to be thinking about. That actually, unfortunately, does affect the quality of your sleep. So even if you think you've slept all night, actually alcohol has got other ideas, unfortunately. So it's actually interfering with the quality of your sleep. So you could still wake up feeling really quite rubbish the next day. So again, I mean, saying don't have any alcohol is a real killjoy thing to say, and we all I'm sure most of us enjoy a glass of wine, but you know, unfortunately it does affect your sleep. So if you're having issues staying asleep and feeling refreshed the next day, that would be the first thing I would look at, really. So one of the other sleep hygiene things, again, that I always recommend is having a bath or shower, because actually physically one of the things that feeds into your circadian rhythm is your temperature drop at night time. So we need a slight drop in temperature to fall asleep, which is why it's harder to fall asleep when it's hot. So obviously if you have a bath or a shower, it's lovely and warm, and then when you get out your temperature drops, and that really helps you fall asleep at night time as well. So again, if you're having issues falling asleep, it's a lovely thing to do, obviously, to have a nice relaxing bath, but it also works in your favour in terms of your circadian rhythm. Obviously your bedroom temperature needs to be relatively cool as well. I mean, I think, as they say, about 17 to 18 degrees, something like that, and it's obviously difficult to get that perfectly spot on, but you know, just being a bit cooler is actually better for you. So maybe avoid the bed socks, that kind of thing. And one of the other things obviously is light. So obviously at this time of year, it's not, or when we go to bed it's dark, it's fine, but obviously when you wake up in the morning, especially in the summer months, it's probably a good thing to maybe think about having blackout blinds, or even a little mask, the type you get when you're on a plane. You know, I sometimes do that in the summer, because again, as I said earlier, light really affects how your circadian rhythm, and your eyes can be closed, your eyes are closed, and light still gets into your receptors in your brain, and it will wake you up. So again, that's a really good one to remember. So what else? So that's kind of the sleep hygiene thing. Oh, we haven't talked about one of the most important ones: TV, phones, that kind of thing. I don't mind TV too much because it's a bit further away from your face. It's not really near your eyes, and you know, we often watch TV in the evenings. It's not too bad, but it's when you've got things quite close to your face, like a laptop, a phone, that kind of thing. Obviously the blue light is quite detrimental to your melatonin production, and again, that's to do with having your big bright lights on as well. So just, if you can, avoid your phone and your laptop for an hour or so before bed, you know, that really will help. You know, and if you're not having any problems with sleep, then you know, you can do what you like, but actually for people that are having issues, then that's a really key thing as well. And not only that, it's not even only the blue light, it's really the fact that your mind is still really active, and your brain's working overtime, really, rather than you relaxing and, you know, just getting ready for trying to get to sleep. So one of the things that I always recommend to mums as well, if they're having, you know, if their baby is waking them up at night, which would apply to people if they're not feeling well with Hashimoto's as well, is a daytime nap. And again, I don't know how you feel about that, Helen, but I usually, in terms of sleep pressure, you don't want to be having a nap too late in the day, but actually a nap just after lunch, when your body clock naturally has a bit of a dip, and you know, in hot countries they have a siesta, you know, maybe just even having a 20-30 minute nap is enough just to take the edge off your tiredness, but still allow you enough sleep pressure at bedtime to fall asleep. So how do you feel about naps, Helen? Do you recommend naps, or something you say no to?
Since I've managed to kind of change my diet and lifestyle, I don't really find any need for having naps now.
Great.
But when I was at my worst with my Hashimoto's, it was sometimes the only thing that got me through the day was having a nap kind of early afternoon, so that I could continue with the rest of my day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely, if you need it, if you feel like you need it, do it. I'd highly recommend it.
And I always sort of say to people that Usain Bolt used to have a nap before winning Olympic gold, so that always makes me laugh, you know, to think of him, you know, having a little nap in the changing rooms or something. So yeah, I do recommend a nap. And the other thing is, if you do wake in the night, which, you know, we do wake in the night, that's, you know, going to happen. But if you find yourself not able to get back to sleep, don't look at your clock. And obviously you haven't got your phone in your room. So, and just judge if you think you've been awake for sort of 15-20 minutes and you're not getting anywhere with getting back to sleep. Obviously your mind starts to work overtime. And again, it's just nice to go to another room, have a dim light on, read a book, until you start to feel that sleep pressure build up again and your sort of eyes are nodding off, and go and try again. And it's really hard not to get into a vicious cycle of worrying about it all the time. I've got a few books here actually that I recommend. So there's something called Cbti. Have you heard of that, Helen? So it's cognitive. So if you've got bad insomnia, it's cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia, and it's so much. It's recommended now. It's the first line of call really for doctors. They don't, sleeping pills. You're not really having a great sleep if you're on sleeping pills. It's not proper sleep. So actually now Cbti is sort of what they're all going over to now. So, and there's this guy, I think he's an Oxford professor, but he's written this book. Can you see? Is that back to front? It's back to front. It's Colin Espy. Sorry, that's going to be back to front, isn't it? But so Colin Espy, he's written this book, Insomnia and Sleep Problems, and that's to do with Cbti, sort of self-help really. So if you're not at the stage of going to see your doctor about your insomnia, that's quite a good, it's sort of about thought processes and how to sort of overcome those negative thoughts around sleep and everything. And there's an even smaller book that he's written, same guy, so you can find them on Amazon. And again, I mean, I'm sure you've read the Matthew Walker book.
I haven't actually, no.
Oh, Matthew Walker is a sleep scientist. It's probably better just my book is completely falling apart. I've read it so much. I wouldn't recommend reading it if you're having trouble with sleeping, because it can frighten the life out of you. But if you're going through a good, it's a really interesting book and so fascinating about the different stages of sleep. I've literally read, for a fact book, it's really, very, very interesting and worth a read. But yeah, I think the Colin Espy books are very good.
If you send me the links to those, Rosie, I'll make sure they're in the text under the IGTV video that I post.
Yeah, I will.
So that anybody who watches it later can.
The other one I liked was called the other one is called The Sleep Book by Dr. Guy Meadows, and he's a psychologist, and he had quite a nice take on it as well about. He said, what's the one thing that people that don't have insomnia do before they go to bed? And he said they don't worry about going to sleep, and that's the sort of how the book goes. It's like the more we put in things like into rituals about going to bed, the kind of the worse it is. And people affect, I've got friends who don't go to book group in the evening because they're worried it's going to affect their sleep, and when it starts to affect everything that you do, that's when you probably need to just have a little bit of a stop and think about your thought processes. And so sorry, is that just like a whistle stop tour of sleep hygiene and what we can do to help really, and what not to do. I don't think I'm just looking at the things I've written down. Sorry, one thing I haven't mentioned is really important is, and again, Matthew Walker, the sleep scientist in the book, that wrote the book, he basically says the one tip that he would recommend is to keep the same hours. So go to bed at 10:30, get up at 6:30, or give yourself an 8-hour sleep opportunity, and don't lie in bed at the weekend thinking you're going to catch up, because you won't. And also it's obviously your body needs to keep those regular hours going, and that people often that can be quite tricky if you're used to having a lie-in at the weekend. But once you've got so much more of the day to enjoy if you get up at 7 or whatever. So that would be his number one tip. So keep the same hours. Don't go to bed really late one night and chop and change. And obviously, again, like I say, if you're not having trouble with sleep, then it doesn't matter. But if you are looking at ways to improve your sleep, then that would be a key thing to try and do, is to have that regular time of going to bed and getting up.
Yeah, sure. That was something I was really bad at.
Okay.
I used to be up till all hours, kind of either out with my friends or kind of reading, because I love to read, and obviously it's quiet, so I'd get kind of that quiet time to read at night. But yeah, I was then kind of messing up my circadian rhythm massively.
Yeah, so I don't know why I forgot to say that right at the beginning, because that is obviously a really key point for everybody. So I keep getting messages coming through. So did you find once you stopped doing that that really improved?
It's much better, and I do the same. I take baths quite frequently before I go to bed. My room's quite cool. I've kind of, most of the stuff you've kind of addressed is stuff I recommend with my clients as well. Like the phones, I have a blue light filter on my phone, and it comes on like 7 o'clock at night, and it doesn't go off until the next morning. And the same with my laptop. I have a filter on that so that I'm not getting all the blue light if I have to work. I try and kind of leave that gap before bed so that I'm not on my device last thing, and kind of
and it can, you know, it's just there's a lot we can do positively to impact how our bodies are, you know, and that's a key, you know. I mean, it's like jet lag, isn't it? We know that we're supposed to go out in the morning when we get to the, you know, start with the meals, meal times we haven't really mentioned, but you know, not eating too late, not eating fatty foods and that kind of thing. I'm sure that's something you massively
and the kind of food eating as well can make a massive difference.
And exercise as well. Obviously exercise is great, but not too close to bed, because it does raise your core temperature, which is opposite of what we need. So there's so many really simple things, and I think if you just have a month of, you know, really trying to sort of keep all those things in mind, and if you find that your sleep's still not getting better, then it probably is worth, you know, making an appointment to see your doctor and just tackling it, you know, with one of the new treatments that are out there, which don't involve taking sleeping pills. Do you find that there are lots of people with Hashimoto's taking sleeping pills, or not so much now?
People tend to, because it does have a massive impact. Kind of, obviously you're already fatigued, you're already suffering with things like brain fog and kind of, and then you're adding in the lack of sleep with it, and obviously your mood issues. The lack of sleep just kind of compounds all of that. There are quite a lot that do turn to kind of help with sleep.
And I think if people knew that it wasn't really proper sleep, it's like with alcohol, people think, well, that sends me to sleep, it's a sedative, but actually, you know, it does affect your actual quality of sleep, and unfortunately sleeping pills are not giving you good quality sleep. So if you can tackle it with other things, it's obviously going to be so much better.
And that's something that's not discussed so much. Obviously everybody knows the quantity of sleep we should be aiming for, but not everybody knows about the quality of the sleep.
No, that's right.
And you can be having 8 to 9 hours, but if you're not getting into those correct sleep cycles and getting the like deeper sleep, kind of when your body's recovering and repairing and detoxing, then you're not going to be functioning properly.
Whole catalogue of problems. Exactly.
Unfortunately,
Okay, thank you, Helen. That's kind of the whistle stop tour of sleep hygiene.
Perfect. That was great. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm glad that's been helpful.
So if anybody's got any questions, either pop them in the comments, or you can contact Rosy directly on her Instagram page, which is Baby and Child Sleep. Is that right?
Yeah, Baby and Child _sleep.
_sleep. There we are. So if you've got any questions, you can, and you haven't managed to find Rosy, ask me and I can pass them on for you.
Sure. So if it's just simple sleep hygiene, I know. I've got the answer. I've obviously read it so many times. I mean, one of my children, my youngest, is he plays football for West Brom Academy, and I'm always telling him to go to bed early, to, you know, I mean, he wants to be tall, so growth hormone is released at night. So, you know, they all get, when they heard I was coming on live, they was groaning and, you know, no, you're not going on about your sleep again. But it, you know, it is something that we really all need to be very conscious of. I mean, you know, it affects your, as you know, that's the main reason that you're talking about it, and it affects your whole body. But, you know, immunity, they found that people that if you've not had a good night's sleep before having the flu vaccine, you're much less likely to have a good response to it. You know, just things like that we don't really, you know, factor in when we're, you know, pulling an all-nighter or you know, revising late at night for an exam. Actually, you're less likely to remember what you've been swatting up on if you've gone to bed late. So, you know, there's certainly room for a lot more education around it. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'm
kind of,
waffling now. Sorry, Helen.
that all plays back into the kind of the inflammation and the gut and the kind of balance with your gut bacteria, because all that affects your immune system massively. So if your sleep's impacting that, that's affecting your immune system, and there you are, you're not having the correct responses to the things that you should be having.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was great, Rosie. Thank you so much for taking the time.
That's all right, Helen. I enjoyed it. Hope I didn't waffle too much.
No, not at all. For your first live, I think you
Thank
should be
you
very
very
pleased.
much. Round of applause. Yeah, thanks, Helen, very much.
No problem. Bye, Rosie.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so if you found that interesting and you yourself are struggling with Hashimoto's and insomnia, and if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the steps I took to regain my health, including my diet and my sleep, the stress management, and if you want to know how I can help you kind of regain your health and get your Hashimoto's under control, then I'm just launching a Hashimoto's healing program. It's a beta program. It's based on my one-to-one program that I offer now. It will be in a group format, so the only thing that will change will be actually how it's presented. The information will be the same, the time that I spend with you will be the same, the food diary analysis, the in-depth health questionnaire, all of that would be the same as my normal kind of one-to-one programs. So I'm just trialing this to see how it kind of relates as a group format, so I can reach more people. But I can help guide you through the steps you need to change, why you need to change them, and I can support you through that process. So we'd be looking at your diet, again, your stress management, exercise, sleep, obviously, and the steps that we would take to address all this will actually show in improvements in your symptoms. In a lot of cases, your symptoms will completely disappear. So you could say bye to the brain fog and the fatigue, the gut problems, hair loss, the weight gain, kind of the list is endless. The difference I've kind of felt from the changes I made have been like night and day. It's been absolutely life-changing. And I'd love to help kind of more people experience that same kind of health that I have, getting back to feeling like your old self, and actually living life and kind of enjoying it rather than dragging yourself through the day. So if you'd like to know more about my program and how I can help, then drop me a message.